Okay, we're going to go over 4 things: how to make a dot plot, how to make a histogram. We're going to review making a box and whisker plot. We'll do it on the calculator. And we're going to review making a stem and leaf plot by hand, because stem and leaf plots and dot plots can only be done by hand. Okay, so we're going to use the Babe Ruth data, which is here on the screen right here. So if you go to Stat and then Edit, let me do that again. Let me get out of here. So Stat and then Edit, and put in the numbers 0, 2, 3, 4, 6. I got them in already. 11, 22, 25, 29, 34, 35, 41, 41. 46 goes 3 times. 47, 49. 54, 54, 59, 60. Alright. Anyway. So there's 22 numbers altogether. So, let's make the box and whisker plot first. Okay? We've covered how to do it by hand, but let's make it with the calculator. So we're going to hit second and y equals, and we'll hit enter, and then we hit on to turn on this function. And we're going to arrow down to type. Now the first type, this is for a dot plot, looking for correlation between 2 quantitative variables. Now in this situation with the box plot, we're only working with 1 quantitative, so we don't want to use that. This is a time plot, but we don't have any time variables to work with. I guess we could put in time variables in L2 and do a time plot. Except I don't have, this data is not in the order of the years that he played, so we can't do that. Here's a histogram. We'll do this in a minute. And then here's a box and whisker plot with outliers. You can see it has the little dots. Those would be outliers if there were any. So I'm going to hit enter. The X list says L1. If for some reason your list was in some other list, then you would hit second and 2, or second and 3, or whatever the list was. Here, second and 3, and so on. But I want L1 because that's where my data is. So I hit enter. Okay, I'm all set. I'm going to hit zoom and 9. And so there is the box and whisker plot. Now the left-hand whisker, you can't see it because it's on the y-axis, because the min is 0. Now I'm going to hit the trace key. See, look at the top gray keys here. Here's trace. And it shows you the min is 0. I hit the right arrow key here, and it goes to Q1, which is 11. The median, see the median right here, is 38. Q3 is 47, and the max is 60. So it gives me the 5-number summary: max, Q3, median, Q1, and min. So you can get the 5-number summary right off of the box and whisker plot here. Okay. Now, let's, just this one time, I want to make the histogram by hand. And so, here's what I'm going to save this document here. File. I got to save this as, let's see, AP Statistics, 4th edition, Chapter 3. Let's call it histogram demo. Okay. Alright. Now I can take, I got my numbers here, which I'm going to leave. I'm going to erase everything else. Oops, I got to put this in reviews. Okay, now I can erase some of this stuff here. Alright. So I'm not going to bother making the box and whisker plot by hand. We've done that You can do it on the calculator. And it shows you the quartiles. Let's just review what it does for you. There are no outliers, but it shows you from 0. Here, let's hit trace. Okay. Let's hit the right arrow. From 0 to 11 is 25% of the data. From 11 to 38 is the next 25%, from 25 to 50%. So at 38, you have the data is divided up into the left-hand 50% and the right-hand 50%. You can see that the data is more compressed towards the higher numbers, and it's more spread out towards the lower numbers. That means it's skewed to the lower numbers or skewed left. Okay? The next 25% occurs between 38 and 47 home runs. And then the final, and so the first 25% of the data is below 75% of his seasons he had below 47 home runs. And then finally, the top 25% is from 47 to 60. Okay. All right, so that's about in whisker plot, and that's what it shows for us. If there were outliers, it would show us what they were. Okay, now we're going to make a histogram. So to do this, now follow along with me in your notes or whatever. Make a long horizontal line. Try to make it straighter than that or more horizontal. And we're going to go 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, 65. So what we're doing is we're dividing the data up into bins. And this is home runs per season. And this is 0 to 4, 5 to 9, 10 to 14, 15 to 19, 20 to 24, 25 to 29, 30 to 34, 35 to 39, 40 to 44, 45 to 49, 50 to 54, 55 to 59, and 60 to 64. Okay, so we have the horizontal axis. Now on the vertical axis, we have number of seasons. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So, from 0 to 4, there's 4 seasons. The season in which he had 0, 2, 3, and 4 home runs. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, in the 5 to 9 bin, there's 1. The season in which he hit 6. In the 10 to 14 bin, there's 1. And in the 15 to 19 bin, there is a gap. Gaps are very significant. In the 22 to 24 bin, there's 1. And in the 25 to 29 bin, there's 2. And in the 30 to 34 bin, there's 1. In the 35 to 39 bin, there's 1. And in the 40 to 44 bin, there's 2. And now there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's about here. This is clearly the biggest bin. And then 54, there's 1, 2, and 3. Okay. Okay, so this is a histogram, and it shows the shape of the data, And it shows the gap between the lower numbers and the higher numbers, which is interesting because it would make sense that it looks like there's almost two different distributions for Babe Ruth because he had two very different careers. He was a full-time pitcher for his first 3 seasons, I believe, a very good one, and then after that he was a full-time outfielder. Okay, so that's how you make a histogram. So how would we describe the shape? It's got a couple of modes, it's bimodal. Okay. We know where the center is. We can count that off. The center is right around here. I think it's 38. Here, let's check our calculator here. Yeah, the median is 38, so right about here. And it's spread from 0 to 60. It's the spread of the data. Okay, now how would you make this on the calculator? You can make a histogram on the calculator, so let's do that. So we'll use the same data. We'll go to second and y equals. And we'll go back to plot 1. Make sure it's turned on, hit enter. Arrow down. Now we're going to arrow to the right to the icon that looks like a histogram. And we hit enter. Notice it defaults to L1. You can change it to L2 if you need to. I'm going to hit zoom in 9. Now here's the default histogram offered up by the calculator. So why doesn't that histogram look like this one? Well, excuse me. Let's look at how it's set up, and for that you go to Window. So the most important part of the window for the setup of a histogram is X scale. It is the width of the bins. So let's arrow down to X scale. Now remember, ours were 5. Now the X min is good, okay? It starts at 0, the X max at 72. Well, we don't really need that. We could make that 61 or 60 or whatever. But the X scale is what we're interested in, and we want that to be 5. Okay? So if I hit, now don't hit zoom 9. If you hit zoom 9, it goes back to where it was before. So I hit graph, and now it looks very similar. Oh, you know what? I have an error here. I just noticed it when I looked at the histogram made by the calculator. This is too high. Okay. You probably noticed that already. Good for you. Okay, this histogram looks exactly like the histogram that you made by hand. Now, if I hit zoom, it'll take me. Oops, I wanted to hit trace. I'm sorry, trace. So the first bin is 0 and less than 5. So since we're talking about discrete data, that is, there's no fractions and no decimals, everything is integers, positive integers, then this is going to go from 0 to 4, just like we have written down here. The next bin is from 5 to 9, or the integer less than 10, and so on. There's the gap. And notice over here it tells you how many seasons are in the bin. Okay, so that's the histogram for the same data. So we've talked about box and whisker plot and the histogram. Now, one of the things I'd like to talk about is a different way to do the stem and leaf plot. Okay, and so to make it look more or less exactly like the histogram. And to do that, we put in the stem like this, but instead of having 0, 1, 2, 3, or let's put that in, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. We can have substems. We can break them up into groups of 5. So this would be 0 to 4, and then here is 5 to 9, just like the histogram. Okay? And then 10 to 14, 15, and so on. Okay? So we would have 0, 2, 3, 4 here. And then in the second one, in this one, we would have 6, because this goes from 5 to 9. And in the next one, we'd have 11, because it goes from 11 to 14, and then 15 to 19. Okay, then a gap, and then 22, and then 25. Let me erase this. Okay, 34, 35, 1, 1, 6, 6, 6, 7, 9, 4, 4, that's getting a little, I should have left more room, 9, and then 0, so I got this too, I should have spread that out more. Anyway, this stem and leaf plot looks exactly like this histogram, exactly like it, except I did a lousy job. You know, I should. This 6 will be okay. Okay. Anyway, so you've got some flexibility as far as the stem and leaf plot. What's the superiority to doing it this way as opposed to just having one stem per decade? Well, you get a little bit more shape, just like this looks a little bit better than the default histogram that the calculator gave us. So you want to remember, you can play with that a little bit. Okay, now the only thing I haven't talked about is the dot plot. So let me do that. All right. So to talk about the dot plot, I have to erase. I'm going to erase all this. See if I can leave the x-axis, because that's useful to me. Actually, I think I'll just start over again. Okay. Now we'll just have an x-axis going from 0 home runs, 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is just make a dot at the exact place on the number line where each number occurs. So we're going to put a dot above 0, a dot above 2, 3, 4, 6, 11. Now you can see this isn't going to show you much shape. Dot plots work better when you have more points, or when the spread of the data is not so big. This data has a big spread. So there's two 34s, so I stack them up. 35. 7, 49, 54, 54, 59. And there's the dot plot. It gives you some shape. I guess it's, anyway, what's nice about it, it shows you all the data. It shows you, now the thing is, it doesn't really show you gaps because it's got a lot of gaps. But it does show you a fairly significant gap over here on the left. Anyhow, but it's plot easily to find the median. There's 22 data elements, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So the median is going to be between 5 right here. Okay, so because the data is all here. You can't, it's very hard to find quartiles with a histogram. So dot plots cannot be done on the calculator unless you set the bin width to 1. Now that will work when your data is all discrete. Actually, let's try doing that. So I'm going to go to Window, and I'm going to set the X max to 60 and the scale to 1. And let's see what we got. Oops. Something that I did, it did not like. 0 to 60 and the scale was 1. I don't know. Did not like it. Let me go back to making this 5. That worked out all right. It didn't like it when the scale was 1. Okay. So I guess you can't simulate a dot plot on the calculator, but they're pretty easy to do by hand. Pretty easy. Okay. So that's dot plot, histogram, box and whisker plot, stem and leaf plot. Any questions, send me an email. Okay?